Hi, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Laurel. I'm Laurel, and in this video we're going to talk about Venn diagrams. In the previous video, I introduced Venn diagrams, talked about what they are, and we looked specifically at two circle Venn diagrams. And in this video, we're going to look at three circle Venn diagrams. So you could have three different categories of elements, and they have overlap from category to category. And I want to talk about how we would work with a situation when we had three of these categories or three circles. So what I'd like to do first is look at the areas of intersection. So if we looked at just the two circles A and B, their intersection would be this part. If we were to look at circle A and C, the elements that are in both of them, or the intersection, would be this portion. And if we were to look at the categories of B and C, and the elements in those would overlap in this area. Now, if we wanted to know the union of all three of these categories, we're going to do it in a similar way as to what we did when we had two circles or two categories. However, it's a little more complicated. So let's look at this and see how we would calculate the union of these three circles or categories. So if we wanted to find that total, remember it's a union. This is the symbol we use for union. So the number of elements of A union B union C. We start off with taking the number of elements in each of those categories. So the number of elements in A plus the number in B plus the number in C. However, if I do that, I've counted this portion twice, and this portion twice. So what I need to do is subtract one of each of those portions. The number of elements in this section right here would be the number of elements in the intersection of A and B. Then we'll subtract the elements that are in this section, the intersection of A and C. And we'll also subtract the number of elements that are in both B and C, so the intersection of those. So that's the symbol we use for intersection. However, if we subtract each of those, we've subtracted this totally. So we want to make sure we have one of those. So we're going to add the intersection of A, B, and C. So that's going to be the formula to find the union of all of the elements in those three categories without any repetition of any elements. Let's take a look at an example. A group of people were interviewed about their taste in music, and the following results were obtained. You'll notice that there's a lot of information when we get into three categories or three circles. So here's our details: the number of people that like rock, country, and rap, the number that like rock and rap, the number that like rock and country, and the number that like rap and country, the number that like all three styles of music, and the number that don't like any of the three styles. This can be a little overwhelming with this much information, but let's draw our circles and try to break down the numbers in each part of the circles. So our three categories are rock music, country music, and rap music. Now, we know 95 like rock, but that's going to include what's in here, 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 and here. So that total will be 95. This total will be 78. And this total that like rap music is 98. We know that 30 like rock and rap. So this intersection here will be equal to 30. The number that like rock and country would be this intersection, which would be 25. And the number that like rap and country, which is this section here, is 18. But again, we don't know how much in each of those individual parts. We do know, though, that 10 like all three. So 10 will be in the intersection of all three circles. Once we know that, then we can find these amounts. So let's take a look at the number that like rock and rap, 30. Rock and rap would be this, is 30. So if 10 are in that part of the intersection, then that leaves 20 here. Similarly, if 25 like rock and country, 10 are in the one that likes all three, so that means 15 more, or 15 are outside of that part, and just like rock and country. 18 like rap and country, so if we take 10 away from 18, we have 8 that like rap and country, just the 2 of them, but 10 like all 3 of them. Now that we've got those amounts, now we can look at how many elements or how many people are in each of those parts of our circles. So if 95 like rock, we've got 95, and we're going to subtract these 3 amounts here. So that's 25, 45. So if we subtract 45, that's going to give us 50. So 50 people like rock and no other types of music. We're going to do the same thing for country. If 78 like country, we're going to subtract 25 plus 8 is 33 to get 45 people that like country alone and not the other styles of music. We do the same thing for rap. Rap is 98, and we're going to subtract 38. So that means there are 60 people that only like rap, they don't like the other styles of music. Once you have your Venn diagrams broken down into all of those individual numbers, and we'll put it with the number of people that don't like any of the 3 styles of music, we have a nice visual representation of all of the information that was given. And it makes it possible to answer certain questions that you'll be asked. Things like how many people like rock music only, or how many people like country music only, or rap music only. Or typically you're going to be asked how many people were interviewed. So what I've done here is I've called the category rock A, category country C, and category rap B. I've also listed all of the information that was given in the question and the formula that's used to find the union of those 3 categories. So using the formula and the information that was given, I can plug into my formula. So the number of category A is 95, the number in category B is 98, the number in category C is 78. I subtract the intersection of A and B, which is 30. I subtract the intersection of A and C, which is 25. I subtract the intersection of B and C, which is 18. And then I add the intersection of all 3. When I do the calculations, I get 208. That's the union of people, or the number of people that like one or more of these styles of music. Because we have these categories all split up into these numbers, and we know each component, and we know the values in each part, we could simply add 50 plus 15 plus 10 plus 20 plus 45 plus 8 plus 60, and we would obtain 208 that way as well. So it provides a check, or you might find it easier to do that way. So depending on what your question or problem looks like, you can use either method. And then finally, the question might say, how many people were interviewed in total? Well, we know 208 people like at least one of those types of music. 30 don't. So the total number of people interviewed will be 238. Let's now take a look at an example, probably the most challenging one, where we don't know the intersection of the 3 categories. So this question says a group of 100 people were asked what languages they spoke in addition to English. The results were 30 spoke Spanish, 25 spoke French, 20 spoke Mandarin. Now this is how many spoke French and Spanish only, which was 10, Spanish and Mandarin only, and French and Mandarin only. And then there were people that were interviewed that didn't speak any of the 3 languages. Those were 55, so we'll stick those outside of those circles. Now in this case, we don't know how many people spoke all 3 languages, and that's going to be our unknown. We'll call that X. I'm going to label my circles S for Spanish, F for French, M for Mandarin. And we're going to start here. the number that spoke Spanish and French only was 10. So that meant this part of the intersection is 10. It doesn't include the ones that also speak Mandarin. The ones that spoke Spanish and Mandarin only would be 5. That would go here. And similarly, French and Mandarin only is 7. Because we don't know X, we can't find Spanish only, French only, and Mandarin only. In order to find these individual numbers, and specifically the intersection of all three, we're going to use our formula. So what I've done is written in symbols how many are in each category. So 30 speak Spanish, 25 French, 20 Mandarin. And then the intersections of Spanish and French is 10 plus X. The intersection of Spanish and Mandarin is 5 plus X. And the intersection of French and Mandarin is 7 plus X. And the intersection of all three languages is X. I'm going to put these values or expressions into my formula. Now, because this is the thing I don't know, I need to know what this value is. What is the union of the three categories? So how many people speak at least one other language? Well, if there were 100 people surveyed and 55 didn't speak another language, that means 45 people did speak at least one other language. So we know that value, we plug that in. We put our other values in. Now this is an expression, 10 plus X. We're going to use brackets because we're subtracting the whole thing. We do the same thing for 5 plus X, and we do the same thing for 7 plus X. And then don't forget to add X as part of the formula. Let's simplify this. So we're going to have 75. Distribute the negative because we have brackets around here. So it's going to be minus 10 minus X, minus 5 minus X, minus 7 minus X, plus X. If we combine all of our numbers, we're going to have 75 minus 10, which is 65, minus 5, which is 60, minus 7, which is 53. Minus X is minus 2X, minus X is minus 3X, plus X is minus 2X. I just moved that equation up here. In order to solve that, I'm going to move the 2X to this side so it's positive. So I'm going to add 2X to both sides. Then I'm going to subtract 45 from both sides. And then I'm going to divide by 2. So we know that there must be 4 people that speak all 3 languages. Now that we know the number of people that speak all 3 languages is 4, we can now find how many people just speak Spanish, how many just speak French, and how many just speak Mandarin. So for Spanish, we take 30 and we subtract 19 to get 11. We do the same thing for French. There are 25 in total, and we subtract 21. So there are 4 people that speak French only. We do the same thing for Mandarin. There's 20 people that speak Mandarin, and 16 of those speak at least one other language. So 4 speak Mandarin only. Understanding Venn diagrams allows you to take a complicated question like this last one and organize all of the information, visualize it, and find any of the missing values.